Excuse me. You have to click the go live. So lame. Good morning. Happy Saturday.
This podcast contains adult themes and language. The views expressed here are our own opinions and experiences. We are not medical professionals.
In this podcast, we discuss our opinions about mental health, sobriety, addiction, and our pursuit of happiness and peace. This is Sober Mind.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. My name is John. This is my beautiful friend Patrick and my lovely wife and beautiful wife, Judy. I did that backwards.
Nice save.
Yeah.
And this is Sober Mind. Here we have adult conversations around sobriety and mental health and just general shit of what's going on in the world and in our lives. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
We like to start everything off. Forgot to hit record.
Shall we do that over again?
Yeah.
Take two.
Good morning, everybody. My name is John. This is my lovely friend Patrick. My beautiful wife Judy. This is Sober Mind. Here we have adult conversations about sobriety, mental health, and just general stuff that we would talk about in our adult worlds. Patrick, we ran 9 miles this morning.
A niner.
Yeah. I texted Patrick yesterday. I said, hey, you ready for an 8-miler tomorrow? About 7 o'clock. He said, I thought we were doing 9. I said, okay, we could do 9. He texted back. He goes, shit, that was too easy. I should have just stuck with the 8.
Yeah, it was one of those things that was just like, pick your suck, right? Like, I'd be like, dang it, I should have said 8 because 8 would have been easier. But like, come race day, I'd be like, man, should have done that 9.
That's right.
I'm very proud of you guys. Way to go. 9 miles is a lot.
Yes, thank you, babe. It is a lot. Okay. Today's topic of discussion is imposter syndrome. The official definition of it is imposter syndrome, from here on out referred to as IS, is a behavioral health phenomenon described as self-doubt of intellect, skills, or accomplishments among high-achieving individuals.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to talk about this one. We've talked about some overarching themes, and I think an excellent way to deal with it and build the toolkit out is, something that we start here on the show very early is the gratitude.
Yep.
So I'll tie that in a little bit later, but definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, we haven't done gratitude yet.
Nope, we're doing it right now. Okay, Judy, you want to kick off the gratitude?
Let's do the tude.
I am grateful for our new studio.
Yes.
I'm so excited and so grateful that we're able to do this and that I'm so grateful for that.
Spoiler
and that
alert.
we've got such a good show
Yeah. So we're calling it. This is the last time you'll see us in this room.
Last time I'll be in the box.
Oh, Patrick, you always say that. Like,
I like it. I love the ambition.
you say ambitious, though, like I doubt it. That's the way I take it.
Backwards way of ambition.
I'm telling you, man. No, don't apologize. That's me. I told you this is a pro and a con of being me. One of the many in my bag, and that is, I made the decision. It's fucking full steam ahead, and I can't stop until it's done. So I do have to temper myself with that. That's a benefit and a curse. In that I catch myself rushing to get it done. But this is another one of those opportunities where we have a blank slate to do what we want to do. So what Judy and I have been catching ourselves doing is, like, we'll get a little bit of fatigue. Yesterday we did sheetrock, ceiling sheetrock. We did two panels. We're not spring chickens. Heads up, we're in our 50s, and it's just stuff like that, depending on how you slept and how you're feeling, man. It's just like you get done and you're like, oh my God, what else? Now what else do I have to do? And then your mind
plus
follows that. And
Plus, the day before, we cleaned out that whole area down there.
Right.
So we did a lot of work the day before. And, 3 flights of stairs. Granted, they're only like 6 to 8 steps. So it's not a full flight. But up and down 3 flights of stairs 20 to 30 times, wear your ass out.
Sheetrock lift does wonders.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Moving them into the house, I was done.
And those are the quote light ones.
Yeah, I hate holding them up overhead.
Yeah. So, but I digress. So, as we're working, like yesterday, we got some stuff done, and she said, hey, I'm going to go make some lunch. Then what do you want to do? I said, let's call it a day. Just regroup tomorrow. We took it easy for the rest of the day, played some Assassin's Creed Mirage.
Fantastic game.
Fantastic game. It's going to be short, but that was by design. But anyway, it's pretty good. We're wanting to get back to Baldur's Gate. Here's our gaming dilemma. The Last of Us is coming. I mean, I'm sure. No, not The Last of Us. I'm sorry. Lords of the Fallen.
Yeah.
And then Spider-Man. But I told Judy, I said, this is okay because Baldur's Gate is going to take us years to complete. If someone says it takes 200 hours, that means for Judy and I, it'd take 1,000.
And plus, we can just jump into it at any time. We don't have to learn new controls or anything like that.
No, the mechanics and stuff that's still there. It's just, the storyline just unfolds drastically different each playthrough.
Yeah. So we'll get going on that. But okay, that's Judy's gratitude. Gratitude, thankful for the new studio that we're building and being able to do it. What's yours, Patrick?
I was thinking about this one this morning, and it's kind of hard to explain. Gratitude for gratitude.
Yeah.
Meaning like, and the best way I can put this is like, gratitude helps the suck ass days not suck so much.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, even on this show, I've been dealing with some ups and downs, and I feel like I'm on an upswing right now. That's just life. But I just remember some of the dark parts when either I was in the throes of, drinking or some harder parts in my life. And it just, that whole victim mindset, like, really makes it like a dark place to be. And I'm not saying like I'm not going to have hard days ahead and, that it's not hard now, but the gratitude definitely just like, it helps not struggle so fucking much all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's nice, if you can give yourself that gratitude, it's a wonderful little gift. It's like a muscle that you got to practice over and over. And if you can give, even on the darkest days, if you can give yourself a little something, that's a big win. That's a nice little reprieve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nice.
So
Yeah, that's a good one.
Patrick, I enjoy being around you, by the way.
No,
Thanks for running with
sorry,
me.
I was laughing, like my kid, like the other night was like, gave it to like, oh, you're the best dad. And then I'm like, well, I need you to pick up your room. I hate you. Like.
I won't do that. But
180.
yeah, gratitude for gratitude.
What's yours, babe?
I was thinking about this the other day. It's switched a couple times, but right now, again, I have gratitude for my sobriety.
That's always a good one.
Yeah, especially around fall as it starts. This used to be, you and I used to host our fall feast. We used to brew beer.
The fall brews.
Yeah, and then have the barbecue and have everyone over and stuff like that.
We don't get hammered.
Yeah, as we go through our sobriety journey, you have to relearn those behaviors of what makes you happy. And what I'm having gratitude for now is being able to have the moments of serenity and peace and calm and happy. I was telling you this morning on our run that part of my daily ritual of conscious meditation is waking up, putting a smile on my face and looking outside, making coffee, and just enjoying those moments and really appreciating being able to live in the moment. when I was drunk all the time or hungover. I was not able to do that. I'd always live in the illusion of tomorrow, just creating static and anxiety for something that hasn't even happened yet, and then orchestrating some bad outcomes.
Yep.
And then, like me, hanging on to old feelings and emotions and the past. I don't do that so much anymore. So I'm grateful. I have gratitude for the sobriety and being able to put me into a better place of peacefulness. Judy and I mentioned that the other night. I think I was either waking up or going to bed. I was like, do you remember? We do a lot of the reflecting. Like, remember how hungover we were?
The member berries. Hey, remember the time?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah. I have gratitude for you too, babe. Thank you for being in my life. I wouldn't deal with me. I just wouldn't. So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Dawn. Dawn is a person that just joined on the chat, so I was saying hi to her. John just had a stroke. He's yelling at Dawn.
So I had a comment about that when you said the imposter syndrome affects the high achievers. It does affect the high achievers, but it affects other people that are not high achievers as well. It's not specific for the high achievers. It does affect a lot of high achievers that you wouldn't think that it would affect, but it affects mainstream people as well.
Oh, for sure. That was just that's the definition I pulled off of the interwebs.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about kind of some of the nuances.
Yeah.
So let's
they
set
say
the
that
table for imposter syndrome. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say let's set the table for the imposter syndrome. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
So they say that 70 to 75% of people have experienced signs of IS at least one time in their lives. Now, I think it's higher, just because I think there's a lot of. I mean, if you were to go into a room and say, "Okay, everybody, raise your hand who has feel the symptoms of imposter syndrome, feeling like." You've achieved all this, but it was either, pure luck, or you faked it all, or you didn't deserve the accolades that you're getting. I have a feeling that you'd have at least 90% of the room is going to raise their hands at one time in their life. They felt that way.
I definitely agree. And, it's interesting to watch imposter syndrome develop because, I also agree with you, Judy, that it doesn't necessarily just affect high achievers. It starts with the voice in your head. Like when you are setting out to do a task, there's a voice that will go, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Right. And that is normal for us to go through all the permutations of like a possible outcome. Right. We are just working through the possibilities. And it's somebody, it's like the parent that's being like, "Are you sure you want to touch that hot, pan?"
Yeah.
So it originates out of a good place as a double check. But when we let that grow, it manifests into something more. And when we give it voice and life, in our daily lives a lot more, it takes on a whole persona. And that's why I feel like it manifests much more directly in high achievers. You can greatly articulate this imposter syndrome where it is the literally feelings of fakeness, or like you're going to be called out. The imposter like really shows up and is like, you got this job, but you can't do all these skills. You're going to be called out. You're going to be caught. And everything that you think you are, you just lucked into this. Right. And
they're going to find out any minute that I'm an imposter.
Right. It's kind of that foreboding joy concept. It's recognizing that the validation is coming. Like you got either a new job, or you got a new role, or a new set of responsibilities. And that first you're like, yeah, I feel good, got the kudos or whatever. And then it then the other, like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop because your mind doesn't want to be so vulnerable. It knows that this can't last forever. So
Yeah.
by building the imposter syndrome, that's setting the table for the self-sabotaging techniques, right? So when something bad does happen, guess who's the first person that shows up going,
I told you.
I told you so. You dumbass.
Told you so.
You dumbass.
That's right.
That's the imposter syndrome. And that's why I was trying to articulate, like, by giving it life in our daily life, breathing into it and giving it more time than it needs. So I'm going to say something controversial here. And I don't think it's the imposter is necessarily a bad guy, because they drive a lot of really hard motivating tasks for a lot of people. This drives a lot of the perfectionism, people that have to do things incessantly over and over and over to make it right. Oh my gosh, this isn't good enough. I have to go back over this. They're going to call me out on these little minute details. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be perfect. Right? And that person the imposter is so incessant that the person's getting like actually really good reps in of like delivering a high quality product. They just can't give themselves the validation that their 95% is really fucking good, and they don't have to break themselves for the last 5%. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
The most common feature is the more success you have, the more you accomplish, the less competent you feel.
Yep.
And to your point, Patrick, we all have I think you should have a healthy balance of it, because if you don't have a balance of imposter syndrome, I think at the end of the day, you're just a narcissistic sociopath.
Unabashed confidence to the point of arrogance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I also read that some of these symptoms start in childhood with either you being, if you have siblings, with either you being the golden child or having to live up to the golden child. And both of those stressors, like the golden child, you do something fantastic, one or two times, and then all of a sudden that expectation is put on you to keep up that A+ standard all the time. And you're afraid that if you fail, then that's, your acceptance is not going to be there. And then you have the other one, which is living up to the golden child. Look at how well your sibling is doing, and they're doing this fantastic thing, and they're doing this fantastic thing. And what have you done? So, I mean, there's two aspects right there that you can attribute to later on having imposter syndrome from your childhood.
Yep. Expectations. They always rear their head. A lot of these would be very type A personalities, very controlling. So we talked about the perfectionist, the golden child. These are also, what did my notes say about the person that either undervalues contributions and like these are the ones like, not just the perfectionist, but the one that's like, at the end of the day, the team needs to do a task and they see it going late, and the person steps up and goes, all right, I'll stay late. I'll be the one that does it. And they just, they just put their needs aside to see the certain thing through because the expectation is there. Yeah, the fixer. Definitely the fixer, to control that expectation is there.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guilty of that a lot. I find myself, I used to, until maturation helped me temper that. And that is, I'd volunteer, raise your hand if you want to help out. No one would raise their hand. I'd always do that. That was actually sabotaging just doing that, because sometimes I'd volunteer to do stuff, especially in our professional lives, that I was not qualified to do. So then I'm over-promising and under-delivering on stuff. So that's a good point. Where this catches me a lot, I don't know if I've paid attention to it in my personal life. I don't know, babe. You'll have to counsel me later and tell me if I have imposter syndrome in our personal lives, because in my professional, I sure do. I've been in positions to where, where you and I work in a highly technical field, Patrick, and it's like, oh shit, I don't know if I'm gonna know how to. Oh man, I shouldn't. And then you go down this rabbit hole of I'm not qualified, or this guy with this title knows this stuff better than I do, and you spend a lot of cycles and a lot of energy redirecting your energy towards that instead of going, no, I just. I could give myself a couple months of grace and I'll figure this out. That's how it works. Us human beings, we get into a position where like, I need to know this shit right now. I need to earn my keep at the fire pit and, prove to them that I can catch a dinosaur leg too.
Yep.
I think it mostly, sorry, Patrick, I think it mostly comes in the work environment. Or in like if you're an athlete in the sports environment, I think it mostly comes into that environment. I'm not saying it doesn't come into the home environment, but it's mostly in the work or athletic or whatever your job is environment.
You are absolutely right. Now, in fact, I was going to use a sports analogy because I think this is the outside in perspective, meaning like. I remember playing hockey for the first time, and in the early years being like, a hockey player has these set of skills. You need to be able to do this. You need to look like this, because if you looked at the people just hopping on the ice and they couldn't skate, you're like, oh, they're just learning. They're not a hockey player.
Noobs.
Freaking noobs.
Freaking noobs.
So I had this image in my mind about what a hockey player was. I had an expectation to get to where I would say, if I could skate faster, stop better, shoot better, and have these set of skills, then I would be a hockey player in my mind. I had never taken this time to like stop beforehand and be like, dude, you're playing, you love it. Who cares if you're good or not? Call yourself a hockey player and just get out there and do it, and the rest will fall in place. Mm-hmm. The athlete, that example is such a great one for work. Somebody of a certain skill level, like a senior network engineer. You have this vision that they have a certain set of certifications and handle themselves a certain way, and you're like, now I can call myself a network engineer. And it's very hard, on the outcome driven orientation of work, how it's expected, because you can't, it's hard, if you're looking for somebody on the team to be a senior network engineer, you're not going to interview them there and go, yeah, well, I like networking. I kind of just poke around in there, so I consider myself a network engineer, right? So there's a certain, it's this weird mix of a threshold of executable skills that you need for it. But at the same time, I think there just needs to be, like you're talking about, the grace of like, look, we're in the field and people are of all different skill sets, right? And the hard part is understanding where that person's skill set sits. I mean, this is really hard for managers too, because you got to meet the person where they're at. Your job isn't to like expect them to be a certain grade. The idea is to, once you get to know them, you have to set their space safely so they can continue to grow into the areas that complement the team and them at the same time. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's this weird dynamic.
Yeah. There's no cookie cutter foundation for a lot of skill sets, if that makes sense. And again, where this catches me in my professional life, I came home and I told Judy about it the other day. I'm looking for different opportunities. And when I was looking around at stuff a couple weeks ago, the imposter portion of me is like, it's very subtle, with us sometimes, but it's very pervasive too. It's like, no, you, especially when you look at a title, they're like, no, you can't do that. There's a lot of, as you're looking, it's like, no, you can't, you're not good enough. There's no. Then there's this cascade of comparison that I do too, like comparing to people that I know and that I've worked with, or people that I've seen do things. Like, no, you can't do that. And I had to step back, and I told Judy, I'm like, I caught myself stopping to do that, and I know it sounds very what was that show way back in the day? I'm a good person. People like me, and gosh darn it,
Stuart Smalley.
Yeah, Stuart Smalley.
Yes.
For SNL.
Yes.
So I caught myself doing that. I'm like, no, wait a minute. I can do this stuff. I am well at it. I'm good at it. And if you know what, then again, I don't want to talk in circles about it, but I caught myself looking at 10, 15 different opportunities, and it's all no, you can't do it. Then I had to stop myself and go, what are you doing, man? Yes, you can. I told, so on the same notion, Judy, I told you about this a couple weeks ago. You know, Patrick and I have our very aggressive half marathon training that we're doing. And so we run the 4 miles, 5 miles, 5 miles, 4 miles rest day. So during one of my 5 miler and then long run on the weekends, oh man, we're getting ready to crank it up to 10 miles starting next weekend. It's a lot. It's a long distance, man. It's a long ways to drive. Anyway, I was out there and I was running and I was having the woe is me. It's normal when we're doing this stuff here, but I was like, man, I don't know if Patrick is really interested in doing this anyway. So what am I doing it for? What am I out here doing? I'll just go back to running my daily 5Ks. It doesn't even matter. I'll start, and I comment. I'm like, hey, what? Like the other portion of me popped in and is like, what are you doing? Shut up. Get the fuck out of here. I'm like, oh, sorry, my bad. My bad for trying to sabotage it.
I like Patrick's version. Okay, thank you for your 2 cents. Now go away.
Yeah, get back in the corner.
Yeah, right.
Thanks for the 2 cents. Get back in the corner.
Yeah. That comparison, you know, the imposter syndrome really compares a lot. And I think that's where the undervaluing of either talents and skills come into place. Because talking about that, like, Patrick feels a different way about the run, so maybe it's not worth it, right? And then in the job situation, it manifests as a good example is since I was talking about senior network engineers, you know, I worked on a team once where we had 2 very capable senior network engineers, but they couldn't have been more different from each other. They had the same skill title. One was as a savant with everything, and you could set him in front of it, and you know everything's like the Matrix code, just sees it happening and could get in there. But for the life of me, do not stick that person in front of a customer.
Yeah,
right. Like
no customer skills whatsoever.
Like be more difficult, you know. And it was amazing when old me would be like, if I just know the equipment and software and everything, I would just excel past. Like I would just know everything. And then the other engineer, I mean, for the lack of better words, almost seemed aloof at that stuff. They were very competent, but they weren't as hard-edged and didn't permeate all that knowledge like the other engineer did. But man, could they talk to a customer, and they were like a real-time translator. They could speak, the network engineering language and make the customer feel comfortable. Like, I don't want to call them like a bullshitter, but at the same time, after every conversation, you felt like you were getting something accomplished, and the customer felt good about themselves.
Right.
Where the other engineer, you could get quickly to a resolution, but it wasn't on a very good emotional path. So I began to, weigh like, who is more right? And the answer is nobody is more right. They're just approaching the situation with the tools that they have available. And that is what is so wonderful about a diverse team, because it's not trying to say that the people talker wasn't as smart and the salty engineer was just too abrasive. We just need to find to lean into our own strengths. And when we show up with the team, we need to learn how to complement those rather than like overshadow or compete or take away from somebody else with those.
Yeah. I remember when some of my experiences with IS was when I was doing massage therapy. And I would work on somebody with all my training and everything, and they'd come out and they would be really grateful and say, "Oh my gosh, I've been had that worked on for so many years, and everybody's tried it, and you're the first one who's ever actually fixed it." Or I feel so much better, and I've had numbness in my leg for months, and now I can feel my leg. and I'd say, oh, that's great, fantastic, and I would leave that thinking, boy, I really lucked out there. I don't know, that person, I completely lucked out there. I don't feel like I did a really good job. I just did what I thought, was needed at the time. It wasn't anything special. I don't know, eventually these people are going to realize that I'm not a special, fixer, that I'm just a typical therapist and don't, this is what's going on in my head while they're praising me at the same time. And I'm thinking, wow, I really lucked out on that one. I hope the next one's just as good. And that's how I went about it. And I never really gave myself the credit that I was using the knowledge and the techniques that I had, and they were good, and I was good at what I was doing. That never came into my inner dialogue and never permeated until after I already left doing massage therapy and didn't do it anymore. And I looked back and I went, yeah, I was actually really good. But not during the whole time. I always thought that, oh man, I'm going to get one and they're going to tell me that I am just shit and have no clue what I'm doing and should not be in this profession whatsoever. So that's when the main IS experience that I can remember in my life. And it's traumatic. It's something that you don't realize is actually permeating and causing these feelings. And it's just that inner critic inside of you just going, you're really not that good. And you're just, you're really faking it to make it here. You're not anything special. It's not easy to deal with, but yeah, that's my first that I can remember of the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And it was not fun.
Well, thank you for your vulnerability on that, Judy. I know that's a lot. You and I talked about that before. Then, good morning, Christy. She says, good getting to the root topic. It is. And, as we've been sitting here talking about this, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the definition that I've been reading is sort of all wrong. Imposter syndrome is essentially low self-esteem. For me,
it has a lot to do with low self-esteem, but it's also that inner critic, because usually for me, it happens during the process, not afterwards so much, but during the process or just after the process is when that, the inner talk would go, yeah, you really don't know what you're doing. And you're lucky that you've made it this far.
Yeah. I'd like to point out too, like, low self-esteem does play into it, but at the same token, for some high functioning and high skill achieving individuals, they may have a high self-esteem. I feel sometimes the imposter syndrome, he shows up with as equal energy, and that's why it's this feedback loop. Like sometimes when you're really high achieving, that voice gets bigger to push you more, right? So it's a larger energy to keep the balance, so to speak, because we don't have a healthy balance to drive us, and it just kind of balloons out of control.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to share, Judy, thank you for your vulnerability on your story, because when you shared that, I realized that showed up for me in my early adulthood, like as a male. A good example is on the rare occasion when I would talk to a friend or somebody in a close relationship, and I would, stumble into a deep conversation, and, if they were dealing with something, my initial stuff was to talk through like possible solutions or outcomes or, why it might happen. And some of my most frustrating conversations with people was when we walked away and they said, well, man, thank you, Patrick. Thank you for listening and just talking through that. And literally the imposter shows up and be like, well, you didn't fucking do anything. You guys didn't solve anything. You just talked about it. You just like blathered around and wallowed in your own stew. You didn't fucking do anything. You didn't fix anything. Like no recourse to pat yourself on the back there. So like, and I felt like, that was a very driving factor in a lot of my relationships in early days, because like I felt the imposter was such a jerk that I would show up and be like, well, you didn't fix it. Right. The imposter shows up like you're going to get caught. Like we talked about that heightened sense of paranoia. Like he will show up and interject like the storm cloud, no matter what, just in order to be like the person that he's just getting that word in edgewise to be like, when it goes wrong, he is just so proud to be like, I fucking told you so, right?
Yeah.
And that's why he gets on the high achieving individuals. You know, this is Icarus. You know, the faster the rise, the harder the fall type of thing.
Don't fly into the sun.
Hubris be thy name, yeah. Right? You know?
Yeah. I think that it can be beneficial, especially for those people who are constant drivers, who are constantly pushing themselves to go harder and harder and harder. It can be beneficial to have that, to give you a little bit boost, but to have it overwhelm you, I think, is when it becomes the real problem, is when that inner critic overwhelms your positive portions of your drive, is where it becomes and it can be. It hasn't really happened to me, but I have read a few things that it can be, you know, it can be debilitating. You get in that
the beatings will continue until morale improves.
Yeah. Or you get into that state of constant analysis, and then now you're paralyzed. You get that paralysis of analysis, and it can be devastating if you don't have, like you said, that balance between the inner critic and the go-getter. But I think it can be beneficial to a point. But still, you get in that self-doubt, you get in that self-critic, and then once they start to run rampant, and then you get into the glass frog type, to where everybody can see you walk into a room and you just feel like everybody's going to know that I am not who I am portraying. They're going to be able to see every detail, every fault in me once I walk into the room, and this is going to collapse.
Yeah, getting to the root of all this, it's, you know, the imposter is born out of our fear, right? Fear of the unknown and fear of failure.
Yes, and that critic can be just harsh,
because the body, you know, like I said, we're just prediction modeling machines, and it doesn't want to achieve happiness. It wants to avoid pain. And these voices are often looking out for us, you know, and that's why I mentioned earlier, gratitude is one of the best ways to address these. You know, when you have the inner critic or the imposter show up and be like, you're going to get called out, you know, blah, blah, blah. And be like, all right, thank you, imposter. I appreciate you letting me know that I am higher than I have ever been before and more vulnerable in this case. You know, you've greatly pointed that out, and, you know, and then you can talk about why you know, you don't have to prove to yourself, but you're like, hey, I know you're just kind of really looking out for me on this one. Go back to your corner now.
Yeah, thanks for your 2 cents. Now go back to your corner.
Patrick, you have a much better relationship with your inner critic than I do.
I have to, like I said, you know, on a previous show, I talked about bringing these things to voice. If you let your fear drive you, your brain is naturally going to create this syndrome, imposter. It creates this whole persona that just lives in your head in the shadows, though. You can't see it directly, and it just pops up, you know, in the most inopportune times, and is just incessantly there. But when you turn around and shine a line on it and be like, okay, imposter, what do you really want to say here? And give him a face and a voice. And then you realize where they're coming from. You know, you have to begin to approach it that way. And the gratitude for saying, like, for example, the fixer, when I felt frustrated on those long conversations, those would be, hey, in your mind, you felt that fixing the problem at hand was the only solution here, but something else just happened and revealed before you that it may not have needed to be fixed, that listening to your friend or that close person was much more meaningful than fixing the problem. You were establishing a deeper relationship, right? And their problem is their problem with somebody else or what they're working through. You did your best to establish your value in their relationship, or, you know, how you felt about the relationship. I can't fight their battles for them.
Yeah. Do we think or agree that people with a pervasive imposter syndrome are folks that didn't have this behavior negated when they were children or throughout their lives? And what I mean with that is, you know, I know people, Judy, you know most of our friends, and so do you, Patrick, that they have a healthy level of self-confidence and just a pretty rigid foundation while still being flexible. And I don't think they deal with imposter syndrome. And in fact, I think they're very, very content with their success as well.
One of the things of imposter syndrome is that they put on a persona, because you're putting on this front that you want everybody to know. You may think that they don't have imposter syndrome, but inside their head is a completely different story.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going with that, is that I tend to think that it's a self-confidence thing, because people that have a good foundation of self-confidence don't portray themselves that way. They're already, it's a fine balance. But I think they're able to.
I agree with you, though.
Able to navigate that a little bit better. So, go ahead.
I was going to use a sports analogy again, and you're right. But these are generationally learned items, and let me approach it this way: like, if I was trying to teach my son how to do a corner kick in soccer, you know. We've all been there in sports, or it's a very common theme where you've been there and you've had the coach and you spend forever like setting up the mechanics of it and the expectations of how it's supposed to play out, right? Like, the ref will set the ball here, you line up here, this is where you need to be, you have to kick it here, and then you get there and you start doing the drill and you like kick it, they're like, wrong, do it again, you're hitting it with the wrong part of your foot, wrong, you know, and it just completely like drills into you, wrong. And then there's the other coach that will be like, closer, better. You did a very good job on your positioning here. I'm not trying, you have to do the compliment sandwich approach, but they realize that the positive reinforcement is steering them, right? Hey, you're very good. Your placement and your ball control are very good, right? So use that as your strength, and then you can kind of work on the other areas. Whereas the other one, the perfectionist approach, is going to always find something wrong. So that's an ever-moving window. That reinforcement technique is developed early in kids, right? I know how to kick the ball now. Now it's still not good enough because my, positioning is off. I'm still not a good corner kicker because of that. Whereas, you have to have that mix of confidence that the person's going to be like, yeah, I may not be able to do my positioning correctly, but I can kick it or place it better, right? And from that comes a desire to continue to engage and iterate and get better. When you're using the negative reinforcement, the approach is always going to be to pull back, to hesitate, to disengage, right? And if you continue to coach that voice, there is only one outcome to that. In life, those people become hermits and just completely withdraw.
Or they get addicted to alcohol or drugs.
Right. or like they just need to shut themselves off from everybody else.
That negative voice that's constantly,
because it
you're
gets so
wrong, you're
big.
stupid, you're not doing it right.
They want to withdraw so much that they've withdrawn from society, and they want to fucking withdraw from inside their head.
Turn off the circus.
Right. So if your approach is always being coached that you're doing wrong and wanting to pull back, that's every conversation. It becomes every conversation in your head. And I know that because I've heard it, and it's awful. You know, because you can achieve great things, but you're like always it feels like you're always on the lamb in your own head. Right. Yeah. That ever moving window, like I can achieve more. And this is why I understand why either billionaires exist, you know, or people who have no threshold of, you know, that just continue to try and achieve and never will be satiated. You know,
it'll never be good enough.
You know, this is very much like the alcoholic. I love the term for alcoholics. A general reminder for me is one is too many and one more is not enough.
Right.
You know, it comes in different flavors. It's like one is too many and 10,000 is not enough.
Yeah. Or which drink do you remember?
The point is, you know, that's an ever moving target that will never be achieved.
A little side note on this is that they didn't actually recognize this until the 70s. It was actually first documented in the 70s, and it's still from the 70s. It's still not in the DSM or the
yeah, you're right. It's still
the
not
Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders.
And to be honest, I don't know.
I was the subject of that book.
I don't think it should be, but I'm not a professional either. But because
it's not a heavy mental disorder, but it is there in quite a lot of people.
I think there are common themes that we need to like learn to talk about, and this is mental health in general, about how either some of these dialogues or voices or feelings begin to manifest into certain behaviors, right? So they're learned behaviors over time, and I think, I don't know, it's just something that I feel like we should be able to talk about, and I'm grateful to the fact that it's given the title of Imposter Syndrome. It may not be a perfect, and it may bleed over into other areas, but the fact that we can talk about it now and relate our own experiences to it, I think is very important. And in the mental health, like what we're doing right now, you know, there's hopefully somebody out there going like, holy shit, that motherfucker has been living in the back corner of my head this entire time, and I haven't been able to articulate what's going on.
Yeah. So to move forward with this, one of the best things that you can do to help yourself with imposter syndrome is something that we say every single show, is to be kind to yourself. That we say that every show. And that is one of the best things that you can do for imposter syndrome. Acknowledge your strengths, acknowledge your capability, acknowledge your training, acknowledge anything that is a positive, that is opposite from that negative critic that is in your head. Even if you have to take 5 minutes out and go, you know what, I'm a good person. I have trained really hard for this, and I know my shit.
Yeah, there's also,
and then, you know,
I also, thinking about this, have had the times where I've done the imposter shown up and he's like, you're fucking doing it wrong. You're going to get caught. And you have to turn around being like, hey, look, motherfucker, I'm the only one fighting for us.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
like,
yeah, exactly.
This is your one ride. It's not perfect. We're in this together. So, you know.
Hey, let's pause real quick. We have someone from the Podbean live podcast that wants to call in as a speaker.
Really?
Yeah. So this is the first time that's happened. There's actually someone else that popped up earlier, so I just sent the invite. We'll see what happens. Brace yourselves. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Can I keep talking until they?
Yeah.
Okay. So changing the inner dialogue. when you're being critical to yourself, stop and think how you would criticize or talk to your best friend about this instead of how you're going to talk to yourself. Because if you were talking to your best friend about the same things that's going on with you, you'd be not a lot, but you would be gentler with them, right? You'd be less harsh with them than with yourself. So take a few minutes and think about, okay, this criticism is going on in my head. Well, think about how you would have this conversation with your best friend or somebody you would love, and then reflect that on yourself instead of the harsh criticism that you reflect on yourself internally. That's another tip or tool that you can use that Dr. Huberman.
I like that. Okay.
Odie's got some comments. Hi, Odie.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
Oh, well. Is the Baldur's Gate server down?
Hi, Odie.
Hey, Odie. Thanks for joining us. Okay, let's see. Chris Ferrone, you are live in the chat. Can you hear us? I don't know. I don't see any audio controls for that.
Maybe perhaps we should test this feature.
I know.
Are you...
Well, I sent the invite. It says they entered the live audio. I don't see any other controls. Chris, type in the chat if you can hear us. What's going on? Are you there? Hello?
Is it me you're looking for?
Is it me you're looking for? All right.
There's a song in there somewhere.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. I meant to tell you. So that's been available for months now, and no one's ever called in. And then when they finally do, I'm like, I don't know how to operate this. Okay, what else is on the list for the IS, babe?
That was it. Just to change your inner dialogue, be kind to yourself, acknowledge your strengths. Take a few minutes to really focus on the good portions of what you're doing, and just change your inner dialogue. Talk to yourself as a friend.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Odie shared about being in the comfort zone being so attractive, because you're in a place where seemingly nobody can hurt you, or where they're not there to judge you. And the reality is, if you can give kindness to yourself in those situations, you realize that your interactions aren't interacting with friends isn't necessarily a time for you to be judged. There are other skills and attributes that you're bringing to the table that you may be undervaluing. Right? And the hard part about that is, I shared mine about being a good listener and then failing to fix that. And I was so fixated on fixing that I couldn't see what was going on. The point with that is, give yourself some grace, and you will talk to some people. I have established many relationships with people that in that scenario where I did listen and I couldn't fix it, that I was disregarded, like I was seen wrongly, that I didn't fix it, right? That behavior was reinforced. This is where the other kindness of, you don't own the actions of others. The best you can do is lead and model the way. And I will continue to harp on that one because we can still use it here. Because you didn't fix it, or because you got called out, maybe somebody is reinforcing the imposter things in your mind, but it is up to you to bring the kindness into that situation, because if you let that run rampant, you're undervaluing, it's not a wholly bad situation. And I've talked about this before. It's neither good nor bad. They're just things that happen. We can choose what strengths we want to lean into. If you give those voices credence, they're going to take over your lives. So
tell the inner critic to have a back seat.
Yeah. Grow your little grow your little tree of your inner cheerleader.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good way to get out of the imposter syndrome, because it's basically, your inner dialogue telling you that you're everybody's going to know in a few minutes that I'm not who I'm portraying myself to be, and that I'm not this good, and I'm not, this qualified, and I don't know what I'm doing. And yeah, just take a few minutes, take a couple of deep breaths, tell that inner voice to go away, and change that dialogue. Tell yourself you are good enough, you are qualified enough. And if you're not qualified enough, you'll learn. You're a good learner. You're a fast learner. You'll learn all these things. It's not like you are going to stay this way for the rest of your life. We are very malleable human beings. We're very adjustable, adaptable. So you got to give yourself credit in that respect too. So if you go into a situation to where you don't know everything you think you should know, you can learn. Everybody can learn. So it's okay to not, have all of the full house in your hand when you walk in. Yep. A pair of aces is good. You can ride that for a while.
For sure. Okay. Hey, so we had someone had mentioned something about the way that we, for our outros, and we used to have the banners up for Al-Anon and the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Mm-hmm. I wanted to take a minute to talk about our intentions with those to make some clarification. I think what we might do is end up having Dad do a new outro, and we might leave the Al-Anon portion in there. And I think maybe I know you're I don't. Okay, here's where I'm going with this: is that we always say if you have suicidal thoughts or ideation, contact the 988 hotline. They are an organization that is available to folks, but we are not professionals. I've had my own mental health battles with stuff, and fortunately, I'm in a position that I am able to seek out direct, qualified medical care through a psychiatrist. We're very privileged with that. We have a pretty big audience in the UK and other places, by the way. 2% UK, a lot of drinkers. Cheers. That we don't know what. So here in the United States, if you were to call that hotline, they are there to deal with a lot of other things. They're a counseling service. They're an index that will help point you in the right direction. Kelly wanted to come on here and talk about this too, but let's be honest.
We'll get her on.
If you were to call that number and say, "Hey, I'm going to kill myself," be prepared. There's probably going to be a couple cop cars that show up at your door and mandated 72-hour psychological holds and stuff like that. So anyway,
which can be good for certain people who are in drastic situations.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to, this came out when we reached out to our audience about topics to bring up, and this one was brought to my attention, and it made me really ponder because I think we need to do a whole episode on it, and I would like to talk about it more because it's exactly what you're talking about. I'm not trying to discredit 988 and their abilities, because they have all the resources and everything, but this speaks to the lack of mental health services and the stigma around mental health, that it is a last resort. So it almost feels like there's no middle ground for the people that need to get to that point. So if you do call and you're in the middle of attempting suicide, until you can talk through and agree upon a plan with that person, you're right. Since they are a last resort, they are a hammer when a scalpel is needed, meaning, their only tools of recourse would to bring LEO and or police officers over. And that sucks. Because of our institutions. There's no other mental health services or wellness checks. The fact that we use law enforcement officers for this for this operation of our arm of social care is absolutely dumbfounding to me.
Yeah.
Because they're going to show up and they're just going to treat it like a dangerous or a hostile situation. And or you get the other areas where we don't have the mental institutions where we used to, and they would just lock you down and could be a very traumatic situation in itself. You're being removed and or positioned with other people who are having similar issues and are not getting treatment, right? So that can be very exacerbating on the problem. And this is what I wanted to talk about, is finding that middle ground. If you're not able to call 988, when we say be kind to yourself, I implore you, find whatever modality you can to talk about these items with the people and discuss. They may
start
be
journaling.
imperfect. Something like start fighting for yourself in some regards, because if you wait to the last minute, the amount of safety net stuff available begins to dwindle, and we start to talk about more potential traumatic experiences happening. So I just wanted to bring those up as a caveat. There's other layers of that I want to talk about, and I'm not trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater by any means, but I just want to be cognizant of it, of like every tool in our toolkit that we've shown out here, it's a tool. It's not the end all solution. I don't want to put on this image of, if you're, feeling suicidal, just give this number a ring a ding ding, you're gonna be all right. It's a tool in a toolkit, and it's imperfect, and we just need to be educated on how it operates and what it can provide for us.
For sure.
Yeah.
And look,
thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick, and thank you to the person that brought that up. We will keep the name out, but look, I've talked about this in depth. There's videos I've made, solo videos on here, to where I've had, very, very candid conversations with my mental health struggles, and we say this as a reminder to you, if you're listening, that when we're sitting here, we're feeling good, we're feeling happy right now. When you're in the dark, deep despair of clinical depressive episode, it is mind-bogglingly bleak. It's really tough. There's a lot of folks that have never even experienced that. They don't understand. It's like, just go outside and go for a walk.
Yeah, just downward dog your way out of it.
That's not how it works. Judy
can't.
has seen me. I can't even get out of bed. I can't fucking sit up. I haven't been there in a long time. Oddly enough, I got to do a follow up. Haven't been depressed since I quit my antidepressants. I did not have the right combination, for the record, so I'm not there. I got a whole video out there where
No, you're right,
to
though.
The point where you were ready
to get off of them.
Perhaps, but we don't know.
I think you're right, though. When you're in such a deep funk and in a deep depression, you cannot see a way to get yourself out. Sometimes you don't even want to get yourself out. You want to stay in that funk. For some reason, it is feeding something inside of you that wants to stay in that funk. And so you just wallow in your own mud. But it is hard. It is hard to get out of there. You can't see a light at the end of the tunnel. You just stay in that dark. The tunnel is a cave, basically, and you just stay there.
Yeah. People don't understand. I've tried to explain that there's some weird comfort that I find in the misery. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
I haven't been there in a while, months. I feel fantastic. And you know what? I credit a lot of that to this show, being able to come in here and talk about these things, having a fantastic friend and a fantastic supportive wife. Just for the record, again, Judy's right around the corner. She is in this house. I get questions about her, like, "Where's your wife?"
Well, we won't have to answer
and when we move to the
questions
studio, you'll be
right? After next week,
I'll be sitting right there with you guys.
We'll be down in the Sober Mind coffee shop downstairs. Okay.
So excited.
Yeah, it is 11 o'clock. Man, fantastic discussions. As we're getting our act together and getting a little bit more organized in these conversations, Judy, what I would like to do is we need to do better too at having next week's topic queued up. So we could say, instead of what I say is, we'll work.
We could also prompt. It would also help prompt the viewers if they wanted to chime in on questions beforehand.
Yes. And please, again,
I will work on that.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, go to the comments and throw in what you would like us to discuss. We've got stuff in the docket, but we want to hear from you all. And a friendly, very selfish reminder that if you're listening to the podcast, please go to youtube.com/@sobermind and please subscribe. The podcast numbers are insane. They're getting tons of downloads, but it is not free. I need some Skrillly Scratch cash to keep that process going. I know. I need some money. Look at this. Electricity lights, got all this stuff. Patrick, his salary that we have to pay him is ridiculous. I'm just kidding. Patrick does it for the love. Okay, yeah, but we're continuing on. Be sure to tune in next Saturday and check out the new studio.
Yes.
And I put a lot of pressure. Now we have to have it done.
Oh, we could get it done. No problem.
Yeah.
We got this.
Okay, Patrick, what are you doing for the rest of the day?
I got a skedaddle to a soccer game.
Okay, let's wrap it up. Judy and I
All right.
and Dad are going to have some Italian food. He didn't have
As we say in the Midwest, some Italian food.
Some Italian.
Yes, and we both earned it.
check
He
it.
did 9 miles, and I did 15 miles on the bike.
Yes.
So we both earned it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. We had 2 people wanting to call in on the Podbean live. So yeah, Patrick.
Yeah, we
you
should have. We
really
got to
test
figure that out, babe.
All right, everyone. Be kind to yourselves. We mean that. Be patient. Give yourself
Yes.
some grace. Remember, if you're struggling with alcohol and addiction, take the first steps. And mental health, take some steps. Put in the work.
Yes.
But know that it's not going to be fixed in the next hour or tomorrow. We all 3 of us are proof to that whole process. It's taken us many years. I did not start to find my happiness and healthy mental foundation until about a year. Oh, Chris said they can't join the call. They'll start later. Anyway, I did not find mine until about a year and 8 months into my sobriety. So
Yeah.
that's my journey as well. Remember, if you get sober, depending on your mileage that you've put on the old gray matter, you may not just wake up perfect tomorrow. It's going to take some time. That is still such a misconception. People are like, I got sober. Where's this happiness? Like
Sucking at something is the first step to getting good at something.
that's right.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. You are worth the time and effort you will put into making yourself a better person.
That's right. Tell your wife. Go ahead.
I was going to say, that was awesome, Judy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tell your wife, thank you for the banana bread. I'm going to go eat
Yes.
that whole loaf. No one else gets any.
Fight your
Oh,
brain.
come on, you got to share. Please.
right.
Just a little bite.
Okay. Have a fantastic weekend, everybody. We're going to wrap it up here.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us. We really appreciate it.
Please contact the Suicide and Crisis Hotline at 988. Also, if you need help with addiction recovery for yourself or someone you know, please check out Al-Anon. Be kind to yourself. Be patient with yourself. You are loved.
See you all next weekend.
Yep, same bat channel, same bat time.
Nope. It's different bat cave.
Ooh, yeah, new bat cave.
All right.
New
Bye, y'all.
bad cave.
Now we need the red phone.
Yeah.